Alright, I'm going to tie one of my favorite nymphs, one of the nymphs that in the last couple of years for me has been just a real producer, a real go-to nymph. This is going to be the hot butt Prince, and this is my version of the classic Prince Nymph, which is, you know, very effective just on its own, but I think I've made a couple of additions that just really make it great for fishing for trout and steelhead. So in the vise I have a size 10 standard wet fly nymph hook, a 2X hook. Like I said, you could be out trout fishing later in the spring run or something, and normally if you put this fly by a drop back steelhead, they don't pass it up. So you want to have a nice strong hook. On the hook I've put a 1/8 inch gold tungsten bead. I'm going to come in with a little bit of 0.015 inch lead substitute wire. Snap the wire off. So as you can see, I'm weighting this fly fairly heavy. It's already got the tungsten on it. And I'm going to come in with a little extra weight. Normally I'll fish this fly as the point fly on a 2 nymph rig. So I want him to drop like a rock, find the bottom in a hurry. So I just push that, I press down the ends of that lead substitute wire and press it right up into the bead. So I'll come on with some black thread. Make a base about back to where the barb of the hook is. Get rid of that tab. I'm going to build up a little bit of a dam right here at the back of my lead wraps so that they won't separate. And I'll put a few loose wraps over the top, and then I'm going to, whoops, and I broke my thread, which happens every once in a while. I'll just rethread it in my bobbin. If you're not breaking your thread every once in a while, you're not tying stuff down tight enough to last. There we go. I'm just going to wrap right over that. There we go. I'm going to wrap right back to the end of my thread body there. I'm going to come in with the secret weapon on this fly, which is a little chartreuse ice dub. Remember, this is the hot butt Prince, so we need to put a hot butt on it. This is going to be our hot spot. I'm going to tie this in and then use this to help separate my tails. So right here at the back of my thread wraps, all the way at the end of the abdomen, I'm going to tie in a nice ball of hot chartreuse dubbing. And for the tails, I'm going to use a couple of brown goose or turkey biots. I'm going to tie the tails splayed like a stonefly tail. I'm just going to tie them in one at a time. Just going to come in on the near side. I'm not going to tie them too long, probably about half the length of the hook shank. On the near side, find that guy down, adjust him if I need to. Come in on the far side, measure him to the same length as the one I just put on. Grab him with the thread. Again, if you need to, before you tighten them all the way down, move them around a little bit. Then wrap him right up to the base of that little ball of dubbing nice and tight. That little ball will splay the tails out. So we'll put a couple of tails that look like a natural stonefly on it. We'll trim those butts out of there. Bind the rest of it down. Now the Prince Nymph is mostly a peacock herring pattern. The peacock is really, really good. It's got a lot of natural iridescence. It's an excellent material to incorporate into any fly. So I'm going to put a rib to strengthen my peacock herl. So before I tie in the herl, I'm going to tie in a piece of small gold wire. I'll lay that right along the side and wrap it right back to the base of my tails. And I'm just going to get that out of the way for a second. Now I'm going to come in with some peacock herl. What I have here is peacock herl, green peacock herl, actually dyed green, which makes it basically twice as green. I've got 6 or 7 strands here. This is a fairly large nymph that I'm tying, so I'm going to use I want to have a substantial body. I'm not so worried about it being really tapered or anything. So I'm just going to wrap that peacock herl right back to where the tails start. Go back up to about the 2/3. I'm going to grab all my peacock herl. I'm going to start giving it a little bit of a twist. Kind of turn it into a rope. Not too much because it is fragile and you'll break it if you twist it too much. And then I'm just going to gently wrap it forward, one wrap after the other. And as you wrap it, depending on which direction that you wrapped it initially in, you may have to throw some more wraps in it to keep it all nice and tight. Okay, I'm about to the 2/3 of the hook. I'm going to wrap my peacock herl down, come in and trim it out. And I'm going to wrap a rib through my peacock herl. I'm going to counter wrap it in the opposite direction as to what I wrapped the herl down in. This is going to, 2 reasons I'm ribbing it with wire. One thing, it gives the illusion of a little segmentation like a natural insect has. Maybe a little bit of extra flash because it is gold. Oh. My peacock just slipped there because I bumped my bobbin and it started coming unwrapped. But since I have the wire on it already, if I'm lucky, I'll be able to just finish wrapping my wire and it should turn out alright. Make a couple of wraps right there. We'll tie that down. Yeah, that'll be fine. Trim that wire right out of there. Make sure I got it wrapped down nice and tight. Got a nice shiny green iridescent peacock herl body in there. Gold wire to keep it tough. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tie in a little thorax. Thorax is going to be ice dub. This time I'm going to use rusty brown. I'm going to make just a couple of wraps of this, just a little bit, kind of a different kind of a flash right behind, and I'm going to make sure I don't fill in, leave a little space behind the bead just like I did there. Now the next step, one of the distinguishing factors for the Prince Nymph, It's mostly a peacock herl fly, but it has these, Prince always has these distinctive white wings almost that are made out of white biots. And for actually for a lot of years, I tied them in and I could never get them to look neat and stuff until just a year or so ago. I actually, I don't know where I saw it, but I actually saw how to do them incorrectly. So instead of finishing the fly and then trying to lay them over the top and then having to make do with a big collar on the fly, what you do is you bring in your biots. What I'll do is I'll measure them, about almost the full length of the hook shank. I'm going to lay them facing forward out over the front of the bead, and then wrap them into that space there that I left. Come in and I'm going to trim out the butts. I'm going to put in two side by side on the back, and then when I fold them back over, they're going to be the back of the fly. Let's see how I did with the measurement. Yeah, that looks pretty close. So I'm going to bind those down good so I don't lose them. Now they're going to project out over the front of the fly and stay out of my way when I do my very last step here. The last step is to tie in a soft hackle. So I've selected a nice brown, mottled brown soft hackle here off of a hen cape. I'm going to take normally the feather would be like this. I'm going to grab it by the tip and I'm going to stroke the fibers in the opposite direction so that they lay down in the opposite direction, and then I'm going to tie it in by the tip like so. Right into that spot I got a thread there. Come in and tie out and clip out that butt. Then I'm going to make one wrap, pull my feather down below. Because it's a short feather, I like to attach my hackle pliers when I'm doing soft hackles. And I'm going to make a wrap. I'm going to fill that thread space in there with the soft hackle. And pretty much every time I make a wrap, I'm going to pull the fibers back out of the way so I don't wrap too many of them underneath. And you don't need very much of this, 2 or 3 wraps at the most. I think I got room for a third one in there, so we'll put him on there. It does get a little tricky sometimes, and biots get in your way. Two or three nice tight wraps around see that feather? I'm going to turn him over here and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to push everything back, biots and everything. I'm going to start throwing some thread over the top, and I'm going to let it pop down into the bead. So I'm going to make kind of a loose wrap around the base of the bead. I'm going to put a little tighten it before I make the next one. As I do that, I'm going to build up a little thread inside there, and it's going to force those biots and the hackle to go back, to sweep back into a nymph-like profile. You can do as many or as few as you like to get the fly to look the way you want it. But by tying your biots in like that, then you won't wind up having a big thread collar there, which is the way that most of the Prince Nymphs you buy or you see, they're all going to have that. This way you can kind of set your flies apart from everybody else's and all the mass-produced ones and that kind of stuff. Okay, I've got it about the way I want it, so I'm going to throw a whip finish. Right on top there. That is the completed hot butt Prince Nymph. Just a killer. In fact, I came up with that fly just a couple of seasons ago, and last year it was easily my best fly for fishing a nymph rig. Lots of trout, lots of steelhead last season on this fly for me. Tie some up for yourself, it's a good one.